could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. Hurry, you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nigel Farage, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys, and it's the first proper day of the general election campaign, and it's all going off.
They're all a load of prats.
Can you spot the Prime Minister's gaffe in Wales?
Looking forward to all the football.
Meanwhile, Starmer's out stroking babies' heads as he targets the southeast.
Decline and chaos continuing under Tories, or rebuilding our country under Labour.
But can you spot why their big campaign launch video had to get pulled? Nigel Farage will not stand as a candidate. A blow for Richard Tice. Utter incompetence and uselessness of this Conservative government. And the Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, isn't making much sense.
But with this election, we have the chance to win the change our country so desperately needs.
Yeah, there's a longer clip of that. The net migration numbers are out and the spin is on.
Immigration figures, and they are down by 10%.
It's actually been around a 50% increase in work migration.
And find out why this man's back in the headlines.
We're back and we're ready for it all over again.
On my panel tonight is GB News superstar Nana Okoye. We've got Tory peer Lord Sean Bailey and ex-Labour advisor Matthew Larzer. Oh, and this horse doesn't like tourists. Get ready, Britain, here we go. They're out the traps and the race is on. Next.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your top story this hour. The Prime Minister has admitted flights carrying migrants to Rwanda will not take off before the general election in July, but he says the scheme will continue if he's re-elected. It comes as political party leaders begin 6 weeks of trying to win votes. After it was announced, polls will open on the 4th of July. Kicking off the Conservatives' campaign this morning, Rishi Sunak claimed Labour would do absolutely nothing to stop the boats.
Everyone else is starting to agree with my approach, which is bold. The one person that doesn't is Keir Starmer. That's a choice at this election. He thinks that we should just offer an amnesty to illegal migrants to make us a soft touch of Europe. It would make us a magnet for thousands of migrants coming from everywhere. So that's the choice at this election. Do you think my plan is the right one? Do you think I'm the one that's taking bold action to secure our borders and to stop the boats? Or do you think he's going to do that? And it's pretty clear that on this issue, not only does he not share the country's values, that it's a problem, he's going to do absolutely nothing about it.
And starting his election campaign in South East England, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says that what the Conservatives have done to this country is unforgivable and voters don't need to put up with it.
Rishi Sunak clearly does not believe in his Rwanda plan. I think that's been clear from this morning because he's not going to get any flights off. I think that tells its own story. I don't think he's ever believed that plan is going to work, and so he's called an election early enough to have it not tested before the election. We have to deal with the terrible loss of control of the border under this government. We have to tackle the small boats that are coming across. Nobody should be making that journey.
Meanwhile, Lib Dems leader Sir Ed Davey says the Conservatives are out of touch.
For far too long, people across the United Kingdom have been let down and taken for granted by this Conservative government and this out-of-touch Conservative Party. But with this election, we have the chance to win the change our country so desperately needs.
In other news, a man has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 32 years for a series of attacks in South London. Mohammed Nur targeted strangers and used a makeshift blade to kill Johannita Dogby, slitting her throat in Brixton in May last year. The 34-year-old was also found guilty of 3 other slash attacks 2 days before her death. And a record number of more than 68,500 people were granted refugee status or other types of leave to remain in the year to March. Home Office figures show that's the highest number for any 12-month period since records began. Meanwhile, the total asylum backlog still stands at more than 100,000. And for the latest story, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Patrick.
It's Thursday, the 23rd of May, and the political parties are out of the traps. It's the first day proper of the election campaign. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was looking to improve on a wet start yesterday and the optics of a Sky News journalist being forcibly removed from their launch event last night.
And I'm being forcibly removed. We just simply wanted to have access tonight at Sky News. But unfortunately, we're told that because there were pool arrangements in place.
Nice to see Darren again, isn't it? Mr Sunak decided to kickstart the campaign trail outside what looks like a row of Portaloos at a warehouse rave.
I think after a difficult few years, I'm pleased that economic stability is now returning to the country. We've just seen that inflation has returned to normal, the economy is growing at a healthy rate again, wages have been rising sustainably for several months now, and although I know not everyone is feeling the full benefits of that yet, it's clear that we have turned a corner. The question for the country is, the choice at this election is, who's got the boldest ideas, the clearest plan to provide a secure future for you and your family? That's the choice at this election.
He's doing a whistle-stop tour of all 4 home nations. He went to Wales and appeared to forget they hadn't qualified for the Euros.
Looking forward to all the football.
Not so much my bag.
Well, no, but that's because you guys aren't in it.
The Scottish National Party set their stall out today. It's hard to tell, though, if their new leader, John Swinney, is talking about his party here or the Tories.
Never has a government deserved to lose more than Rishi Sunak's government. You want higher living standards and a fairer country where everyone can lead secure, happy, healthy lives. You want a national health service you can rely upon, most of you, think that Brexit was a terrible mistake. You don't think Westminster works for Scotland, and you want Scotland to have a strong voice. All of those things sum up what I am about.
The Liberal Democrats have said that they want to target 80 Tory seats. Here's their leader, Sir Ed Davey, delivering a completely meaningless word salad of guff to a load of people probably dressed in socks and sandals.
For far too long, people across the United Kingdom have been let down and taken for granted by this Conservative government and this out-of-touch Conservative party. But with this election, we have the chance to win the change our country so desperately needs. And there's a real chance in this election, if people vote Liberal Democrat, they will get that change. But it's not just a change of government. We need to transform our politics. Our policy is broken. If we can transform it, that unlocks the chance to fix our health and care system.
Hey. Labour's Sir Keir Starmer is attacking the Tory heartlands in the South East. His day began by patting a baby's head. Perhaps someone had shown him a little bit more compassion, though, after he appeared to avoid applauding Craig McKinley's heroic return to Parliament after his battle with sepsis. The handshake at the end there we go. But then he got his message out there, didn't he?
So this election is about a choice. Two different countries, two different futures. Decline and chaos continuing under Tories, or rebuilding our country under Labour. The power of the vote is with you. If you want change, you have to vote for it. And if you vote Labour, it's a vote to stop the chaos. It's a vote to turn the page, and it's a vote to rebuild our country together. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Over to reform now. Richard Tice's day started badly when Nigel Farage issued this letter. He will not be standing as a candidate, but he will be campaigning. It's fair to say that this has not gone down that well with everyone. But Mr Tice copped it again, though, for this unfortunate graphic, really. So, I mean, he was saying there that, you know, 1066, the immigration line was flat. I mean, quite famously, though, I must say, there was some illegal immigration from France in 1066. But anyway, he got his point out there in the end. It's the immigration election, apparently.
So you can't trust the Tories. And as we know, Labour wants more mass immigration. If you want change, folks, you've got to vote for it. On July the 4th, vote for change, vote for Reform UK.
Ah, the eagle-eared of you will have realised that the word change is coming up a lot at this election so far. So, that's how all the major parties kick-started their campaigns today. It's a mixed bag. I'm just going to cross over now to our man on the street. This is Barry in Bury to see what he makes of what he's seen so far.
They're all a load of prats.
Let's get the thoughts of my panel. Tonight I am joined by GBNews superstar Nana Akua. I have got Tory peer Lord Sean Bailey and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Look, Sean, I'll start with you. Sunak has got off to a pretty, well, damp start, hasn't he?
He definitely got soaked. Some people I've spoken to said, what a trooper is out in the rain. Other people said, why didn't he just go inside in the dry? What I would say to Rishi is forget about it. The thing you learn about a campaign is it's not one little disaster that defines your campaign, it's a general feel. You'll make some mistakes, some things won't go how you planned, but soldier on. And I think what's much more important now is for Rishi to learn to tell stories. Must tell stories that counteract the narrative that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are trying to get going. That's how he beats this man.
OK, all right, and Matthew, I'll put it to you that there are two things that Labour don't have an answer for at the moment. They want to make it easier to change gender, some more men in women's changing rooms, and that asylum seeker amnesty, which could see 90,000 people added to the backlog.
Well, they're already in the backlog because they're already here. So,
no,
Sean, I've just been sent the first word cloud, where they do a focus group and ask people the words they associate with what they've seen. And this was on the launches yesterday. The biggest words in the word cloud for yesterday for Rishi.
Is this for who? It's for Rishi?
This is for both Labour and the Tories. Okay, so for Rishi, the big four the biggest 4 words were desperate, wet, rubbish and weak. And for Keir, the first 4 words were confident, positive, ready and hope. I think that says it all about the fact that
Alistair Campbell compiled that word.
Exactly. What that says is...
It's for more in common, it's available there on the net.
A Labour Party member put that together, surely.
No, it's from an independent focus group.
Look, what do you make of what we've seen so far? Who's got off to the best start, Anna?
God, well, I mean, Rishi Sunak was a cross between Gonzo from The Muppets and Roland Rat, wasn't he? And he was like a drowned rat. Actually, if you take the A out of the Sunak, it's sunk. And that is kind of how he came across. That was just not good, was it? And then you had Sir Keir Starmer, who looked like the cat that got the cream.
Yeah.
But then he sort of didn't know how to sort of behave because he was not expecting... It was like he didn't really expect to find himself in this position. So he was caught off guard. And then you had Ed Davey, who... he was grinning like a Cheshire cat, wasn't he? Like, with the rest of his party, and they finally worked out that their banners are orange and not yellow, because usually the Lib Dems are all sort of multicoloured banners. They haven't quite got it right. And, of course, then you had Richard Tyers with the Reform. And So I just felt that, for me... I thought they were all pretty useless. It's all pretty lacklustre. And frankly, I mean, I don't know what I will do in terms of... I have to vote, but I just thought they were all pretty bad.
Let's have a little look now at some of the resignations that have come in thick and fast so far. We've got Sir Michael Ellis, MP for Northampton North, Hugh Merriman, a Transport Minister and MP for Bexhill and Battle, James Grundy, MP for Lee, Dame Eleanor Lang, a Deputy Speaker of the Commons and MP for Epping Forest, Joe Churchill, the Employment Minister, and the MP for Bury St Edmunds. Sean, your MPs, even Cabinet Ministers, don't want it.
Look, I think one of the things that Rishi could have gotten better is not to surprise people. If you're a general and you're about to enter a battle, the people you should inform is the people who are going to fight that battle. And I think that hasn't played out too well with some of the MPs I've spoken to. But this is natural. You do get a number of MPs who will stand down. But if you surprise them, when they stand down quickly, it looks like it has something to do with the Prime Minister and not a plan they had beforehand. So he now will have to carry this because he didn't inform them.
But nobody's on his side. So that's, you know, he doesn't know who's on his side. So even if he had told people what he was going to do, then that would have leaked out because they're so disunited that they just wouldn't have...
But you might well be correct, Anna, but it's still, you have to do, because the few who are on your side and the ones who are in the middle, if you don't involve them, they'll join the group that's not on your side.
But Matthew, apparently Rishi Sunak has challenged now, well, he has challenged Sir Keir Starmer to a weekly televised debate. Starmer doesn't want it. Why is he running
Starmer doesn't want it. Bring it on. I don't think there's any evidence that Starmer doesn't want it. I know from speaking to people in Labour HQ, they're up for it. I was in 2015, I was one of those negotiating debates with the Tories when David Cameron wouldn't debate, take his opponent. So as long as the rules are fair, which I'm sure agreement can be reached, you know, bring it on and I look forward to it. I mean, let's remember, as you say, Sean, all these MPs are leaving because this has just been sprung on this. We're having a general election on July the 4th. Remember when it's insulting to Scotland because the Scottish schools are on holiday? We're having it...
Why is that insulting?
Because it's always... You never have elections during school holidays.
Why?
Well,
they're independent.
Because people... They're not independent.
Well, they certainly want to be.
Well, no, the majority voted to stay in, including campaign for by your party. And, of course, all this is about is because Rishi Sunak knows he's going to lose and he wants to have his kids starting in school in California in August. He's smelling the salt of the beach in Malibu. He's checking out...
You see what Matthew's just done and said? That is what's wrong with this campaign, particularly by the Labour Party, but not only, and what's wrong with this country. The reason everybody's apathetic about politics is because of the way people in politics speak about politics, and personal attacks like that are necessary.
It's absolutely true.
You literally named the man.
Let's ask the Prime Minister then, Sean. I want a Prime Minister of this country who didn't have a green card, who wasn't have a green card of another country, and he deserves it because of his record. Because of his record, Sean. He's ready to... He doesn't care about his country.
Let's not all of you stop it. This is getting weird.
Let me just finish the point.
Let Sean finish.
Let me just finish the point. The bottom line is, right, no matter who wins or loses, we have to emerge from this as a country that has some chance of sticking together, and we won't if those things continue.
Oh, come off it, Sean. The Prime Minister's spent the whole day attacking Keir Starmer, and it's perfectly legitimate to attack Rishi Sunak, who doesn't... Who will be in Malibu before Christmas.
They're leaving because they know they're going to lose, frankly.
Exactly.
That's the only reason they're going.
Totally.
But you shouldn't really be talking about personal attacks. Let me just remind you, Angela Rayner, misogynistic, homophobic, Banana Republic, Etonian, racist scum. That came from your party. West Streeting. Anybody who's voted for Susan Hall is a white white supremacist or hate.
It wasn't quite what he said. He would give sucker to white supremacists.
But he said that that is a vote for those who are white supremacists, and which implies that those who are voting for...
Well, it implies Sean's a white supremacist.
And me too. So
Did you vote for it?
I don't think that the Labour Party can talk about throwing out insults. Their insults are the worst.
All right, OK, right, off to a good start. And, yeah, may I, very politely, we love a spirited debate here, but we do have people listening on radio, and it is a little bit tricky when everyone's shouting over each other.
We'll behave ourselves.
However, I absolutely love it, so. Anyway, right, still to come, I am joined by one of the most important figures in the Tory election campaign, Party Chairman and MP Richard Holden. Plus, legal migration remains absolutely sky high, 685,000. Where are these migrants coming from, though? For me, that's the bigger story, actually. Where in the world are they coming from? And why is the government still failing to do that much about it? You'll never guess the answer, though, to this question.
What do you want to do if you're not an MP?
What do you want to do if you're not an MP? Strap yourselves in for that one. But up next, this is, I think, probably the other big story of the day. So Nigel Farage sent shockwaves through British politics.
I've been offered a role to work for a very big grassroots conservative movement in America.
Yeah, and so he's not going to be standing, is he? So I want to hear your views tonight following that. Has Nigel made a massive mistake by refusing to stand in the election? Going head-to-head on that are the Reform Party's Rupert Lowe and journalist Mike Buckley. It's Patrick Christys tonight. We're on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
If she has such ambitions, where does this leave Prince Harry? I mean, he's obviously already resentful that he was treated as a spare back here in Britain. But he would only then become even more of a spare if he were married to either the president or somebody who was clearly setting her sights that way and taking various offices.
Yes, clearly this presents a problem for Harry, because if you notice what their plans are, and there's Meghan's lifestyle blog, American Riviera Orchard, an odd name, really rather ponderous. I think her PRs could have thought up something better. And then this Netflix program on cookery and entertainment and so forth. Harry is doing a series on polo, which is a bit of an elitist sport, actually. But, of course, Harry has got Invictus. And so they have to, as they plan, Harry must, it must be absolutely definite that Harry will be integral to the planning. I mean, remember, he is very emotionally reliant on her and therefore might be content in this context to be a spare, even if many people would laugh. But I certainly see, remember, you have to begin by hard campaigning. They're only putting in a each for their charity Archwell. If they really do want to get into politics, if that is her ambition, then I think she should make absolutely sure she's got the ground rules of how you do this in America. They've got to have a look at also whether they would wish to have their, or keep their titles in, even though they're in abeyance. This too is a problem. I mean, if you're really looking at a serious political career, I don't see it starting from what we know now.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The People's
Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel. We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, with legal migration running out of control, I lock horns with a migrant support worker, Kay Marsh, who joins us live from Dover. But first, after Nigel Farage announced that he won't stand in the general election, has he made a huge mistake? It's time for tonight's head-to-head. It's got a lot of people going, this story. So this morning, Farage confirmed that he won't be competing for a seat in Parliament. In a statement, he said, important though the general election is, the contest in the United States of America on November the 5th has huge global significance. I intend to help with the grassroots campaign in the USA in any way that I can. Well, in the last few hours, this is what he told GB News.
What I'm good at is getting grassroots energised, getting grassroots active, and I've been offered a role to work for a very big grassroots conservative movement in America, not aligned to the Republican Party as such, but very influential.
Well, pollsters had recently predicted that a Farage comeback would cause a surge in support for reform, with the potential to annihilate the fractured Tory party at the ballot box. So tonight I am asking, has Nigel Farage made a mistake by not standing for reform in the general election? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GB News. While you're there, go and vote in our poll. The results to follow shortly, even. But first, I am joined now by Reform UK's business and agriculture spokesman, Rupert Lowe. We are, I believe, trying to get Mike Buckley on at some point as well, who is obviously from the left. But for now, Rupert, it is just you and I. So, look, I put a tweet out earlier asking my followers whether or not they thought Nigel had made a massive mistake here, if they felt let down. A man who puts the US over the UK, he can see reform has no chance. He's all talk, always has been. There's quite a lot of this going about. Has he cocked up?
Well, good evening, Patrick. It's a pleasure to be on your show. The answer to the question is no. I think if there was any form of misunderstanding, it was through the announcement that was made this morning that I don't think was entirely clear. Nigel is not doing anything other than supporting reform. Indeed, he's, as you know, stood down from his programme on GB News so he can help across the country to campaign for our key target seats, one of which is the seat I'm standing in Great Yarmouth. He's already committed to come and spend some time in Great Yarmouth, a constituency that's been very badly let down by both the Tories and Labour since the war. And I'm delighted he's coming. I think he's one of the most effective campaigners in Britain, and he started this movement, and I know he wants to finish it off.
Okay.
I think.
Could I just ask you, Rupert? You know, Nigel has previously spoken in withering terms about American politicians coming over here and interfering in our politics. Is he not now doing that over there?
Well, I think in America he's right. You know, obviously the free world is now led by somebody who, in my opinion, Patrick, has got dementia. I think that's pretty clear for everybody to see. So I think it's absolutely crucial that we get a strong leader of the free world. Donald Trump is not everybody's cup of tea, but at least I think he will bring some decision-making. He will bring some respect for freedom, some respect for the individual versus the collective. So I think Nigel quite rightly sees the leadership of the free world as very important. I think
I get all of that. And look, by the way, for what it's worth, there's no point pretending to anyone about it. You know, I get on with Nigel, obviously, and you know that's well documented, right? So I don't want to seem like I'm digging him out unnecessarily here, but you know, I am putting up the side of it that it could be viewed that you know, Mr. Great Britain, Mr. Brexit, Mr. Union Jack has decided not to stand because he's going to get a few dollars stateside.
Well, I think he could have done both had he chosen to do that, Patrick. I mean, I personally think he would have won in Clacton had he decided to stand in Clacton. We've got a very good candidate in Clacton who's got an extremely good chance anyway. And I'm sure with Nigel's help, which as he's given everybody his commitment, he's going to give the key people. At the end of the day, I think we can still win it. But I think that's a personal decision. He could have had a bite of both cherries, but he chose, I think, to spread his talents across the entire reform campaign, which arguably is, it could be said, is obviously stronger for us than him just standing and committing himself to one seat. So I know Nigel, like me, you know, we've been part of this. I stood for the referendum party to save the pound. I then did a lot for Business for Sterling. I did a lot for Vote Leave. I ended up standing for the Brexit party because Theresa May. Now I'm in Reform because Westminster is not working for any of us. So at the end of the day, Patrick, this is very important. We're all standing to give the British people an opportunity to vote from somebody from outside the existing Westminster establishment.
Okay.
If you're happy with the way you've been governed, vote as you've always voted.
I get that.
If you want change,
I do get that, Rupert. Look, I'm sorry to stay where you are there, Rupert, because we now can introduce, I believe, former Labour Party advisor Mike Butley. There he is. Good lad. OK, Mike, look, thank you very, very much. OK, so Nigel Farage here is doing the bigger thing for the world. It's more important at the moment, geopolitically, for him to campaign here, but not get bogged down in the day-to-day machinations of Westminster and then go over and have a huge influence stateside as well. He is doing the brave thing, isn't he?
I think what he's doing is cutting and running. And I think what he's doing is saying a few things. Firstly, I think he's saying, I can make more money by being in the US, which I think is probably very likely. And if that's what he wants to do, he can go ahead and do that. I think he's saying he's not particularly interested in Britain or what happens in Britain anymore. And if that's what he wants to do, then to be honest, that's probably something that I would celebrate. But what he's also saying is a real indictment on reform. What he's saying is reform is not worth my time. It's not worth my energy. It's not a political party that's going to go anywhere. This election is not going to be about reform. It's going to be about throwing the Tories out, getting a Labour Party government in. And he's decided that even if he stayed and stood, A, he would lose the seat, he wouldn't win, but also he'd be a sideshow and he'd be irrelevant. He clearly thinks he's got a more interesting opportunity over in the US.
OK, all right. Rupert, how big a blow is this for reform? Because there are two ways of looking at this. There's that, yes, this is a blow for reform, but it gives the Tories potentially more of a clear run at it, and now the only political wings snapping at anybody's heels are the pro-Palestine independents snapping at Labour. I mean, how bad a blow is this for Richard Tice?
Well, I think I've just told you I don't think it is a blow. I thought the press announcement this morning was badly worded, and I don't think there was any necessity to talk about America. But I do take Nigel's point on America. He's come out quite clearly, Patrick, and he's committed to helping Richard Tice, to helping all of us in the Reform Shadow Cabinet. And he's going to spend time in more than just one seat. He's going to help everybody, which is fantastic. So frankly, the trouble we're in, largely most of the Heffalump traps were laid by the four horsemen of the apocalypse, who were Blair, Brown, Campbell and Mandelson, who the problem is the Tories haven't repealed a lot of the ridiculous legislation that they laid, including the Human Rights Act, into our Constitution.
All right, you put that. You put your side of it across, Mike. Some people are saying that Nigel Farage is a hypocrite. Would you agree?
I think Nigel Farage is a hypocrite for many, many reasons. I'm not sure he's evidenced that today exactly. I think today actually proven himself to be reasonably consistent in running after where he thinks the money is, running after where he thinks the most notoriety is. But what he has done is he's cutting and running from Britain. I'm glad about that because I think he's been a toxic influence on our politics for a long time. But I think what he's evidencing today probably makes clear to a lot of people who haven't seen to this point is that he just hasn't much interest in Britain. He hasn't much interest in people's lives, and he has no interest in improving people's lives.
Is that going to be a hard road back for Nigel here now, though, Rupert, isn't it? You know, that is going to be a millstone around his neck, that he had the chance to stand in this election. You know, he sits on a platform, or certainly did on GBNews every single night, saying, you know, cares about Britain. He's got all the answers to all of the problems for this country at the moment, and he's not standing.
Well, Patrick, you won't be surprised to hear that I think what Mike's saying is complete dribble, but, you know, I wouldn't expect anything else, frankly. But at the end of the day, Nigel, it's not about money. Nigel spent 25 years fighting for British sovereignty on an MEP's salary, which, let me tell you, is hardly a great deal of money. So at the end, he could have gone and done something else. So I think to say that he's just taking the coin now is drivel. And I'm delighted that he's going to be playing a much broader part in our campaign. I think Britain is very disaffected with the duopoly, the two-party system that's failed us. We have a very average bunch of people in Parliament, and we need change.
All right, look, both of you, can I just say a massive thank you? And we got there in the end, so good stuff. Look, who do you agree with? And honestly, this has been really fascinating for me in this newsroom and online and reading things like GBNews, Yours Say, and I've got quite a few things coming in here at the moment in front of me, just to see what the reaction has been to this Nigel Farage announcement. I can't help but wonder whether or not, was he a bit too honest in saying what he said about America? Could he have just written something that said, look, I'm going to do what I can here to campaign for reform. I don't necessarily want to get bogged down in one constituency. I don't know. Look, who do you agree with? Kim on X says, yes, Farage wants to have his say and strut around without actually having the guts to face the electorate and their judgment. I don't know if I agree with that, though. He's faced the electorate on numerous times, OK? He's not always won, but he has done very, very well at European elections. I think to say that Nigel doesn't have guts, I don't think that's fair. All right, Richard says, for him personally, no, it's not a mistake. Elliot says, something we'll only know in hindsight. I think the really important election will be the one after this, when both main parties have proven useless. That is an important point. Is he playing the long game here? Saying, well, let's see what happens with Labour, and then he picks up the pieces. 59% of you on Twitter, though, agree that Nigel Farage has made a mistake in not running at the election. 41% of you say that he hasn't. Coming up, have we just seen a masterclass on how not to start a general election campaign?
Now, I cannot and will not claim that we have got everything right. No government should.
Well, there's a lot to talk about when I have a chat with the Tory party chairman, Richard Holden, who joins me live very shortly. Can he get that campaign back on track? But next, the Home Secretary has been, well, very chipper today when it comes to net migration figures.
A couple of hours ago, the ONS released immigration figures, and they are down by 10% because of the plan that we have put in place.
But net migration still stands at a staggering 685,000. So next, I will show you where all of these people are actually coming from when we go toe-to-toe with someone who's been described as an open borders fanatic. Stay tuned.
Hello, very good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Southern areas will stay mostly dry as we go through the end of the week, but it's a wetter story further north because the same area of low pressure that has brought all the rain we've had through the last day or so is lingering across the UK. So we can expect further outbreaks of rain as we go through the end of today, overnight and into Friday. Some of the rain will be a little bit on the heavy side, but it is definitely easing. Further south, it's going to stay largely dry overnight, and there will be some clear skies under which it could turn a bit fresh, a bit chilly perhaps for some of us to start first thing tomorrow morning. But on the whole, once the sunshine gets going, temperatures should rise quite quickly. If we take a look at what's going to happen first thing tomorrow morning, and yes, it's a bit of a cloudy, damp start across many northern parts, particularly across a big chunk of Scotland. Cloud and outbreaks of rain. None of it looks particularly heavy, but could cause some further issues for areas affected by the heavy rain we've seen recently. Perhaps some brightness across western parts of Scotland, but across Northern Ireland, much of England and Wales, a fairly cloudy and a little bit damp start. The best chance of any sunshine first thing tomorrow morning will be across southern parts, and to be honest, here's where we're likely to see the best of the sunshine as we go through tomorrow. As a result of the sunshine, though, we could see a few showers popping up, but it is generally going to be drier towards southern parts, a little bit cloudier and a bit wetter further north. Some outbreaks of rain, perhaps the odd heavy shower here, but not as wet as it has been recently. The temperatures will be near normal for the time of year, feeling warm in any sunshine. In fact, across northern parts, it will feel markedly less fresh than it has done recently. As we go into Saturday, perhaps a bit of a chilly start for some of us, but it does look like the driest, sunniest day of the long weekend. A few showery outbreaks developing, particularly towards eastern parts, but on Sunday, we are expecting some more wet weather to push its way in. Some of that could be pretty heavy at times, and more showers perhaps on Monday too.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Look, still to come, I've got the Tory party chairman, Richard Holden, joining me in an attempt to defend Rishi Sunak's quite widely criticised snap election announcement yesterday. But first, the latest stats on net migration in Britain were released this morning, with the new 2023 figure of 685,000 falling 10% from the previous year's record high. However, it must be said that last year's numbers were rounded up, so there we go. But despite that fall, the number of foreign workers arriving from outside the EU increased by more than 50%. So I've got a bit of a nationality breakdown for you here. So apparently, Indians topped the table for the number of non-EU nationals arriving in the country long term. We've got about 250,000 of them. Nigeria as well, as you can see. Pakistan, China and Zimbabwe rounding off the top 5, all right? So arrivals from India, Nigeria and Pakistan apparently made up a majority of those granted visas to work in the UK as well. So there's quite a lot at play there, to be honest with you, and quite astonishing numbers, which you'll have just seen on your screen. So, whilst you'd expect these findings to shock those on the political right, even Yvette Cooper is slamming them as a sure sign of government failure.
Well, in fact, what the figures show is over the last year compared to the previous year, there's actually been around a 50% increase in work migration. And what that reflects at the heart of it, I think, is a failure on both the economy and on immigration, because there's been no action to tackle the serious skills shortages. What you've seen, for example, is a big increase in engineering visas at the same time as engineering apprenticeships have halved. Well, you know, there's a link between those things, and that's what I mean about the failures around both the economy and the immigration system. Unless you tackle the skills shortages, unless you make sure we've got proper skills and training here in the UK, that's why we're just going to have really chaos in the system. So we need a properly managed and controlled immigration and asylum system, so the system is fair, so that we make sure that we obviously benefit from the international talent and investment that our country will always need, but so we also have rules properly being enforced, which again, they're not at the moment.
Right, well, I now welcome Kay Marsh, a migrant support coordinator for the pro-migrants' rights charity Samfire. Look, thank you very much, Kay. Great to have you on the show. When we have a little look at the demographics, we see a rapid demographic change that many people think will change Britain forever. Is that a good thing?
Well, if it's positive change, then yeah, certainly. I think British values and British culture is built on diversity and on multiculturalism, isn't it, as most cultures are. I think this sort of fallacy that it's eroding British culture is just more sensationalism, isn't it, to instill fear and prejudice.
I mean, is it, though? I mean, is it actually, though? Because if you have a look at a lot of people, let's just say, OK, 250,000 people from India, we've got 83,000 people from Pakistan, we've got 33,000 of Bangladeshis, 21,000 Sri Lankans. Every single person in the world knows that they have a radically different culture, by and large, than Western culture, OK? And there's a huge amount of reasons for that. So if you do import a lot of those people, it would stand to reason, would bring that culture with them. So is that a good thing?
we have elements of different cultures built into our British culture, and we, you know, the food we eat, the music we listen to, everything we do is built on multiculturalism. I mean, do you personally feel like your British culture is being eroded? Do you feel like you are stopped from living a British life due to people living in this country?
I think a lot of people feel as though the area that they live in has changed significantly in the last 20 years. And could I just put it to you as well that whilst we might have nice things like a more varied diet and a more rich music industry, we do also have a rise in sectarian violence and an increase in honour-based violence as well. And you can't really ignore that, can you?
Yes, but that is, you're picking out specific things from certain cultures, but we have crimes and violence as a massive problem within our own British culture. So crime, violence and that type of thing has less to do with where somebody is from and more to do with what sort of a person they are. Do you know what I mean? If somebody is not intrinsically bad because they come from a different country.
I'm not saying they're intrinsically bad, and I'm not saying that, but sometimes they might bring their own issues with them, like we saw where we had Eritreans clashing on the streets in London recently because, unfortunately, we had helped to import both sides of a civil war that was going on there. So, I mean, that stuff does exist, doesn't it?
Well, of course it does, but so does issues in our own culture. Do you know what I mean? Those things are always going to exist. And all of these issues stem from mismanagement of British systems. Do you know what I mean? The migration thing is only an issue because it's been mismanaged. OK, so the legal migration issue is because of failed attempts to solve the domestic labour shortages in the UK by the Tory government. Do you know what I mean? The crime and the violence is failing through the policing system and security system in this country. Do you know what I mean? Those are the things we need to look at. We need to stop saying, oh, foreign people are bad, because that just simply
I don't think anyone's saying that apart from, and I do genuinely mean that with absolute respect. I think you like to say that loads of people say that, whereas actually really what I'm talking about is the idea that 1.2 million people arrived in Britain last year, and yes, OK, absolutely, I agree with you. Things could and should have been managed better. And yes, absolutely, we should be doing more to fill our own labour shortages. There's no question of that. But it is always going to be incredibly difficult to absorb 1.2 million people from hugely different cultures. Anyone would struggle to do that. And do you not think that maybe there is a question to have a little bit of a pause on certain things? Or are you happy with this level of numbers?
Everything needs to be re-looked at. Do you know what I mean? These people are here because we've allowed them to be here. This is legal migration. These are people we have given a visa or a route to. So, you know, the problem isn't with the people arriving here, it's with the systems, as I said.
Fair enough.
Government mismanagement.
All right, look, thank you very, very much. Great to chat to you as Migrant Support Co-Ordinator, easy for me to say that, for Sunfire Marsh. Thank you very much. All right, OK, look, coming up, we have got a little bit from Richard Tice. He's laying out what he believes is at stake on July the 4th.
Utter incompetence and uselessness of this Conservative government.
But next, is a Conservative comeback truly on the cards? I've got a sit-down interview with the party's chairman, Richard Holden. It should be fascinating. See you in a tick.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
J.K. Rowling has branded a transgender football manager as a straight, white, middle-aged bloke. Lucy Clark, who's been appointed manager of Sutton United's women's team, you can see Lucy on your screen now, responded saying another day of hate-fueled transphobia against me. Now, Rowling's comments have resulted in her being accused, of course, of bullying as she continues her rampage on social media. J.K. Rowling once again proving utterly fearless in her pursuit of free speech along the areas of transgenderism. Do you think here she's got a point? Do you think, however, she might be being accused of being transphobic?
This isn't about a football manager. It's about challenging the taboo that says you're not allowed to say the true sex of a person if that person claims a transgender identity. And it's because she's speaking the truth that people are saying it's cruel or it's not allowed or it's transphobic. Because especially women have been have had this constraint imposed on us that we're not allowed to say when we see a male and when it matters. But sometimes We have to be able to say that. You know, how can we talk about single-sex spaces and how can we protect those spaces if we're not allowed to state the fact?
Lucy apparently is well liked by the team, should be left to get on with their job. What business is it of J.K. Rowling's?
Yeah, good luck to Lucy. You know, people of both sexes manage football teams. That's nothing new. That's not the story. The reason we're talking about this is because a pride group claimed on X that this is increasing diversity in football. And J.K. Rowling is merely pointing out that football management in particular has always been male dominated, and the addition of Lucy Smith to the management roster doesn't do anything to change that.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Look, coming up, will this be the immigration election? But first, Tory MPs have reacted with fury to Rishi Sunak's surprise announcement at the July 4th election, with those seeking re-election left scrambling to launch their campaigns and the MPs leaving Parliament now denied swan song speeches. One fuming Tory MP said, "People are just pissed off, to be honest with you. I've woken up feeling numb." He is committing Harry-Carry with his party. Even some cabinet ministers were left bewildered by Sunak's decision. Esther McVey, Chris Heaton-Harris, both raising their objections in yesterday's cabinet meeting. It's also emerged that Sunak's decision to go to the polls on July the 4th was kept to just a tight circle of his closest advisers. And it was Sunak who apparently insisted on making his speech outside in the pouring rain. Well, that chaos did give Keir Starmer something to talk about at his election launch earlier today.
This election is about a choice. Two different countries, two different futures. Decline and chaos continuing under Tories, or rebuilding our country under Labour. The power of the vote is with you. If you want change, you have to vote for it. And if you vote Labour, it's a vote to stop the chaos. It's a vote to turn the page. And it's a vote to rebuild our country together.
Well, I'm joined now by the man in charge of the Tory campaign. It's the Conservative Party chairman, Richard Holden. Richard, look, thank you very, very much. You didn't know he was going to call an election, did you?
I was aware a while ago that the Prime Minister was considering calling an election later in the year, and a few dates have been muted.
So you had no idea he was going to do it when he did it, then, no?
Well, as I said, there's lots of discussions about when, but the clear thing is now we've got that choice before us, that choice facing the country. Do we carry on with that clear plan that we've got? Do we instead go to the chaos of a Labour administration who have no idea, no plan what they're doing, or do we have that bold action from a Conservative government which has shown actually it's willing and able to address the issues faced by the British people? We've seen, just in the last couple of weeks, Patrick, you know, we've seen the GDP numbers over the first quarter this year growing faster, not only than our major European competitors, but faster than the States. We've seen those inflation numbers really falling. The Prime Minister said he was going to halve it, now down to normal levels, you know, and I think we're starting to see real momentum in the country and the economy, with wages now rising faster than inflation for 10 months in a row.
Fair enough. With absolute respect, what I have taken from that is that you, the party chairman, did not know he was going to call an election yesterday when he did, and I think that is quite interesting. Why exactly has he done it now? Because
well, Patrick, that's not what Patrick,
well, you didn't say you knew.
Not what I said.
With respect, you didn't say you knew, and it would have been quite easy to say that. So
no,
has he done it now in time for the American school term times? That's the rumour.
I don't know what that is referring to. He's called it now for a very clear reason, and that's because we've seen those economic numbers really moving in the right direction in the UK, showing very clearly that the Conservatives' plan for our economy is working. And at the same time, we're seeing that on one side, and on the other side, a chaotic Labour Party with no idea what it's offering to the British people, a Labour leader who can't even stand up, not just to the trade unions, but to his own deputy when he tried to get rid of her not that long ago. What we've seen actually is a clear choice at the election between a government with a clear plan, a bold vision, which will secure the future of our country in a very uncertain world. You've been covering it here on GB News over the last few months, what we've seen in the Middle East, what we've seen in Ukraine, with our rise of China, you're often covering here. You know, these are big issues, geopolitical issues facing our country, big challenges facing our country. And who do we want to stand up to it? Keir Starmer, who can't even stand up to his own shadow cabinet, or Rishi Sunak, who's standing up for the British people?
All right, OK. Look, there was the old, rain fest outside Downing Street yesterday. That is one thing, OK. I'm just going to play you a little clip from earlier today.
Looking forward to all the football.
Not so much my bag.
Well, no, but that's because you guys aren't in it.
Asking a load of Welsh people how they're feeling about the football in the Euros when they hadn't qualified. I mean, some people will also remember when he didn't know how to use Apple Pay at a petrol station. Is he out of touch? A bit of a liability?
Not at all. Look, I think you're seeing the Prime Minister getting out and about, talking to normal people. All we've seen so far from Keir Starmer is stage-managed big events where he's not actually meeting normal people. Look, the Prime Minister was out there in the rain and the cold because he's not a fair-weather Prime Minister. He's somebody who's seen as out there through the tough times, through COVID. He was behind those big schemes which supported the British people, small businesses like those in, right across the country, and also the British economy in those tough times. And he's somebody who's just out there getting on with a job and going out and meeting people. And one of the things we're seeing today actually emerging, Patrick, is, actually the Prime Minister came on GB News, did that big People's panel debate with you guys. I thought that was a really good thing to do. You guys gave the opportunity for the Leader of the Opposition
do you back our legal action against Ofcom?
And also,
do you back our legal action against Ofcom?
Well, I am very clear that I think that actually what should have happened is a Leader of the Opposition should have had the balls to come on your show and actually speak to a GB News audience. And I'd also say that Keir Starmer at the moment seems to be dodging those debates as well. The Prime Minister has made it very clear he wants to be there toe-to-toe with the Leader of the Opposition so that those ideas can be out there, not just those set pieces in Parliament, but actually out there for the British public to see over the next few months. I think that's really important, and I want to see as many of those debates happening as possible.
OK. All right. Now, Richard, I am just having something in my ear, so I am apologising to you for this. Can I just say, before I let you get going, thank you very, very much for coming on, Richard. It is much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick.
All right, you take care. There's some breaking news. At least 2 people have died and 12 are injured after a 2-storey building collapsed in Mallorca, emergency services say. Spanish media reports say the building was a restaurant on the beach in Palma de Mallorca. The incident reportedly happened at 8:30 local time, 9:30 in the UK. We don't know if any Brits are involved in this tragedy. We'll bring you all the latest developments as they happen. Just to reiterate, 2 people are dead and several others are injured after a building collapse in Mallorca. We'll bring you the very latest on all of that. Coming up, will George Galloway and his band of pro-Palestine activists be the undoing of Labour? We look at what the impacts of the fringe parties and independents will be happening at the ballot box. But next, Reform's Richard Tice has billed it as the immigration election. So here's what I'm asking. In order to win, does the Labour Party need to show they're serious about securing our southern border? My panel will tackle that in a moment. This is Patrick Christys Tonight. We are only on GB News. And right now, I've got your weather with Alex Burkill.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Southern areas will stay mostly dry as we go through the end of the week, but it's a wetter story further north because the same area of low pressure that has brought all the rain we've had through the last day or so is lingering across the UK. So we can expect further outbreaks of rain as we go through the end of today, overnight and into Friday. Some of the rain will be a little bit on the heavy side, but it is definitely easing. Further south, it's going to stay largely dry overnight, and there will be some clear skies under which it could turn a bit fresh, a bit chilly perhaps for some of us to start first thing tomorrow morning. But on the whole, once the sunshine gets going, temperatures should rise quite quickly. If we take a look at what's going to happen first thing tomorrow morning, and yes, it's a bit of a cloudy, damp start across many northern parts, particularly across a big chunk of Scotland. Cloud and outbreaks of rain. None of it looks particularly heavy, but could cause some further issues for areas affected by the heavy rain we've seen recently. Perhaps some brightness across western parts of Scotland, but across Northern Ireland, much of England and Wales, a fairly cloudy and a little bit damp start. The best chance of any sunshine first thing tomorrow morning will be across southern parts, and to be honest, here's where we're likely to see the best of the sunshine as we go through tomorrow. As a result of the sunshine, though, we could see a few showers popping up, but it is generally going to be drier towards southern parts, a little bit cloudier and a bit wetter further north. Some outbreaks of rain, perhaps the odd heavy shower here, but not as wet as it has been recently. The temperatures will be near normal for the time of year, feeling warm in any sunshine. In fact, across northern parts, it will feel markedly less fresh than it has done recently. As we go into Saturday, perhaps a bit of a chilly start for some of us, but it does look like the driest, sunniest day of the long weekend. A few showery outbreaks developing, particularly towards eastern parts, but on Sunday, we are expecting some more wet weather to push its way in. Some of that could be pretty heavy at times, and more showers perhaps on Monday too.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The next Great British Giveaway winner could be you, with a massive £20,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Imagine how you'd react getting that winning call from us.
Oh my God, are you joking?
Not lying, I never won a penny in my life.
I don't know what to say.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life. Oh my God. Oh God. Oh, it shocks me.
This is amazing.
For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys, and the election is on, and the public have spoken.
They're all a load of prats.
Can you spot Sunak's gaffe here?
Looking forward to all the football.
And can you spot why Labour had to pull this advert? And the word on the street is, this man's back.
We're back, and we're ready for it all over again.
Yes, the net migration numbers are out, and the spin is on.
Immigration figures, and they are down by 10%.
There's actually been around a 50% increase in work migration.
What on earth is Ed Davey going on about?
But with this election, we have the chance to win the change our country so desperately needs.
I've got all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages with GB News star Nana Akua, Tory peer Lord Sean Bailey and ex-Labour advisor Matthew Larzer. Oh yes, and you will never guess the answer to this question.
What do you want to do if you're not an MP?
Get ready, Britain, here we go. Is this the immigration election? Next.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. First, to that breaking news coming to us out of Mallorca. 2 people have been killed and at least 12 injured after a building collapsed on the Spanish island, and that's according to emergency services. Local media is reporting the 2-storey building was a restaurant on a beach. We will bring you more as we get it. In other news, the government is looking to pass key bills before Parliament dissolves. The Prime Minister's flagship smoking bill looks set to be shelved, whilst legislation to pay compensation to victims of the Post Office Horizon scandal has passed. It comes as political party leaders begin 6 weeks of trying to win votes after it was announced polls will open on the 4th of July. Kicking off the Conservatives' campaign this morning, Rishi Sunak claimed Labour would do absolutely nothing to stop the boats.
Everyone else is starting to agree with my approach, which is bold. The one person that doesn't is Keir Starmer. That's a choice at this election. He thinks that we should just offer an amnesty to illegal migrants to make us a soft touch of Europe. It would make us a magnet for thousands of migrants coming from everywhere. So that's the choice at this election. Do you think my plan is the right one? Do you think I'm the one that's taking bold action to secure our borders and to stop the boats? Or do you think he's going to do that? And it's pretty clear that on this issue, not only does he not share the country's values, that it's a problem, he's going to do absolutely nothing about it.
And starting his election campaign in South East England, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says that what the Conservatives have done to the country is unforgivable and voters don't need to put up with it.
Rishi Sunak clearly does not believe in his Rwanda plan. I think that's been clear from this morning because he's not going to get any flights off. I think that tells its own story. I don't think he's ever believed that plan is going to work, and so he's called an election early enough to have it not tested before the election. We have to deal with the terrible loss of control of the border under this government. We have to tackle these small boats that are coming across. Nobody should be making that journey.
Meanwhile, Lib Dems leader Sir Ed Davey says the Conservatives are out of touch.
For far too long, people across the United Kingdom have been let down and taken for granted by this Conservative government and this out-of-touch Conservative party. But with this election, we have the chance to win the change our country so desperately needs.
And a record number of more than 68,500 people were granted refugee status or other types of leave to remain in the year to March. Home Office figures show that's the highest number for any 12-month period since records began. Meanwhile, the total asylum backlog still stands at more than 100,000. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Patrick.
Well, the net migration figures are in, and it's worse than many people expected. Net migration was at 685,000 in 2023. It's the 3rd year running that overall net migration has exceeded the pre-Brexit, pre-COVID levels of roughly 200 to 300,000. A total of 1.2 million people arrived in Britain in the last year. The breakdown of non-EU nationals is this: 250,000 people from India, 141,000 from Nigeria, 90,000 from China, 83,000 from Pakistan, 36,000 Zimbabweans, 13,000 Ghanaians and 33,000 Bangladeshis, as well as 21,000 Americans and 21,000 Sri Lankans. Now, it's easy to highlight the rate of cultural and demographic change that this will mean for Britain. The latest stats also reveal that the net migration figure for 2022 has been increased I mean, shock horror. We were initially told that it was 745,000, but that has been rounded up to 764,000 now. The Home Secretary, James Cleverly, says that that latest figure of 685,000 for 2023 is a 10% reduction on the year before, and he's happy.
A couple of hours ago, the ONS released immigration figures, and they are down by 10% because of the plan that we have put in place.
Labour's Yvette Cooper, though, is not impressed.
Well, in fact, what the figures show is over the last year compared to the previous year, there's actually been around a 50% increase in work migration. And what that reflects at the heart of it, I think, is a failure on both the economy and on immigration. Unless you tackle the skills shortages, unless you make sure we've got proper skills and training here in the UK, that's why we're just going to have really chaos in the system. So we need a properly managed and controlled immigration.
Well, those are the numbers. Let's talk about what they mean now with my top panel. Let's get the thoughts of them. It's GB News presenter Nana Akua. I've got Conservative peer Lord Bailey, and I've got ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Sean, I'll start with you. If it's the immigration election, if the Tories lost it.
There's a few things to say about immigration. First and foremost, Keir Starmer talked about our border force. He made no mention of reducing numbers and how we go about it. I think there's a worry that his response will be, well, we'll just give everybody an amnesty and that's how we'll clear the backlog. And I think he needs to answer those questions as well.
That's what the government's doing.
Yeah. But if you look at immigration, I think one point where Rishi is right, 14 or maybe 15 other European nations are now looking to do something along the lines of Rwanda. If we are the only people not doing that in the future, then
but
we
this is legal today. I get that, Sean, but this is legal today, and actually the net migration numbers for the year before last were rounded up. 764,000 it was before. I mean, that is quite astonishing. I suppose when it comes to Yvette Cooper, though, Matthew, people probably just don't trust her.
I don't know why they don't trust Yvette Cooper. I don't think look, the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of cynicism about politicians and immigration, partly because this Tory government, remember back to Mr Cameron and Mrs May, as Prime Minister,
and Blair through the country.
No, Blair never said it was going to be tens of thousands. It was going to reduce it to tens of thousands. Cameron and May promised that, and of course, we've now seen over 1 million people coming every year.
What did Blair promise then?
Blair didn't promise to bring it down, to bring those down.
Yeah.
We were in the EU, and this was an EU rule. If we were still in the EU, immigration would be lower each year than it is at the moment. But May and Cameron sits in this Tory cabinet, said it was going to come down to tens of thousands, and it's now at 1 million. And Rwanda is a sick joke. It's cost 200 million quid, and not a single person has been forcibly sent by it.
Yeah, but
and it's a total disaster. The reason we're having the election, Patrick, is because he's worried that he's never going to get a plane taken off Rwanda.
OK, but can I just keep this on? The net migration numbers is the legal levels of migration.
Yeah, absolutely, that's what I said.
That's what I want to keep this...
Tens of thousands, it was 1 million.
The impression at school, when they said you round something up, you go to the nearest 10, you don't add 10,000 almost, which is what's happened here. So, look, the Tories, this has happened on their watch. There's no way out of this, whatever way you look at it. And all I see there is that we've replaced the kind of migration we had with different parts of the world that a lot of them are very culturally different to this country. So that's what's happened with the people who would have come here from the EU. Instead, we're taking from other countries as well. And actually, we have complete control over that. So whichever government come in and take charge of it, they just need to take total control and make a decision as to how many people we need and stick to it. And I don't understand what went wrong with the Conservative Party on this. I have no idea.
Totally agree, Nan.
The thing is, though, that there's no democratic mandate for this, Sean, is there?
Look, there's no denying that it went wrong on Conservative Watch. Nana's analysis of it is fairly accurate. What the election will be about, will Labour do anything different? Because what people will have seen over the 10, 15 years that it's gone wrong, Labour were in support of all of these things and have traditionally had a blind spot on immigration. So it'd be very interesting to hear if Keir Starmer says, I'm going to cut the numbers, I'm going to send people home, I'm going to send bones home. I would be very interested to hear Keir Starmer say, we're going to reduce net migration from whichever part of the world it is by whatever percentage. That, for me, is the only way out I'd listen. Keir Starmer.
Well, Labour's been absolutely clear.
Have they?
That it wants to get net migration down because it wants to get more people back into the workforce here.
How?
So we're not importing. How easily, Sean? Doing the welfare to work that Labour did, the percentage of people
the migration figure.
But by getting people, because the migration figure is driven by people coming to here to do jobs, we need to get people off benefit and into work here to do those jobs, which will reduce the net legal migration
Angela
figure.
Rayner come up with something, some fair pay plan that would actually bankrupt a lot of businesses and wouldn't work at all?
No, it's a set of rights. It's a set of rights. But we need to pay people fairly in the care sector. The care sector, which we all rely on.
come up with is unrealistic and
the plan for the care sector, we need to get people in the care sector. We need to pay people here properly in Britain so that we're not importing people to look after our older and vulnerable people.
Now, that's the net figure that I gave you before, 680,000. The reality is that 1.2 million people arrived in Britain last year, and I think that figure will probably be rounded up because I believe the last two have, so why not? Hey, go for the hat trick. But the breakdown of these non-EU nationals, Sean, 250,000 people from India, 141,000 from Nigeria, 90,000 from China. I would imagine most of those are students. 83,000 from Pakistan, 36,000 Zimbabweans. We've got 21,000 Sri Lankans. Should people, or no, do people have a right to be concerned about the rate of demographic change in Britain?
I think what they have a right to be concerned about is the rate of economic change. How many of these people... We've often talked about immigration as if it just adds to the country's income. What it does, it adds to the size of the pie, but it doesn't add to the makeup of that pie. Are people coming that are contributing, or are people coming that will cost us? And that's where I think the real pain will lie. I think the other thing is as well, the demographic change will be a problem for certain communities. And what are the government, any government, proposing to do about this? And that's why I suggest Labour have a real serious blind point about it, because they will not talk race. They will not talk what's going on in communities. They won't have that conversation. So those changes will never be addressed and certain communities will suffer. You've already heard Operation Muslim Vote, etc. That stratification of our society is going to be...
But Sean, I mean, on an absolute factual basis, leaving the EU meant that rather than people coming from the EU to work here who may be more culturally similar, people are now coming from different parts of the world.
But it didn't have to mean that.
No, it didn't. And as Nana says, the Tories made that choice. Nana was right.
Well, yeah, but the way you're saying that is as though, instead of... What we've done is we've levelled the playing field is what's happened here.
Yeah.
So people from the EU have to do the same thing as people from other countries to get into this country.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that. That is right. But the problem has been the selection process, and I'm wondering whether the Labour Party will get that selection process right.
Labour wants to get the number of people coming here down, so we've got to get more British people into jobs, which reduces the benefit bill and reduces migration.
It sounds to me like you're saying it's fine as long as they're white Europeans.
Exactly.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that let me address that because there's a very specific charge there, Sean.
Yes,
what I'm saying is because one of the things about EU migration is that a lot of people went home because they came temporarily. People are coming from Zimbabwe and further afield. They tend to stay longer. That's what the figures show. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong.
No, but they came legally.
Absolutely. What I'm saying, Sean, is you're saying there's an issue about demographics, and Patrick's saying there's an issue about demographics. That's just a consequence of leaving the EU. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. You said it was a problem. You're the one who said it was a problem.
No, that's not right. The problem is not the fact that they've not come from the EU or whatever. The problem is we've selected the wrong kind of people. And when I say that, we're not going for looking at our job shortages and then recruiting people to come into this country legally to try and fill those
wherever they're coming from.
We're literally just taking on students and anybody, and that's not good enough.
It goes back a little deeper. Under the Labour government, that's when we really saw a ramping up. We became drunk on cheap employment. Instead of training our own, what we did was import cheap.
Well, the economy was booming, so we needed more workers, which it isn't at the moment.
Yes,
for a time. Now we're reaping the wool.
Can I ask something to you specifically now? Because look, Sean, obviously, card-carrying Tory, card-carrying Labour member, right? When it comes to this election, some people are saying is the immigration election. Right? Who actually wins on that? Because we've got the facts of a Tory government and the suspicion of a Labour government.
I personally don't think it's an immigration election.
Okay.
I actually think that it's more cost of living, what that party can bring to you personally, as in which one will benefit you financially. And I think because the problem with immigration is not the small boats, because that actually is a tiny portion. It's actually the legal immigration, and we have control over that. So whichever party offers the best deal deal for that, I think we'll do fine. And I think either party, I don't really care. But for me, I believe that this is about cost of living, which party will benefit you personally, who's going to sort out the NHS, who's going to enable you to get a doctor's appointment,
but every time...
who's going to do that?
That's a good point. So is this not an immigration election?
I tell you why it isn't an immigration election, because in certain parts of the country, immigration is a big, big deal. If you're down on the South Coast, if folks in places like it's a big, big deal. If you're in the middle of London, immigration just does not feel the same. It's just not an issue for communities here. So actually, I don't think it's an immigration election. What I do think it will be about is about the bottom line, people's incomes. People are very concerned about where they live. People are very concerned about where they're going to be as pensioner. The NHS, actually social care, not just the NHS, is a big deal, always is, but I'd argue it's a big deal in a very specific way now that it hasn't been in the past, because people are starting to ask tougher questions of the NHS itself, not just the politicians involved.
OK, and you also think this is not an immigration election?
I think it's not purely an immigration election. I think it's up there as one of the 6 or 7 issues. As Nana says, the economy, cost of living, and let's not forget the NHS, 7 million people on waiting lists. But the broken promises on immigration just play into the broken promises we've had over 14 years.
You can say that for both parties there, so, you know.
All right, all of you, another rip-roaring start to an hour. Fantastic. Look, coming up, find out how Tory MP Steve Baker responded to this question.
What do you want to do if you're not an MP?
It's really not what you expect, by the way. So unless you happen to have already seen that clip, there is no way you will guess the answer to it. Plus, do the Tories need to play dirty to win at the ballot box? Now, this is a great topic. Do the Tories need to play dirty to win at the ballot box? I'll get the views of my panel. But next, the pro-Palestine local councillors made this promise earlier this month.
We are coming for you in the general election.
So how big an impact will fringe parties and independents have at the ballot box? I am joined by the director of the Oxford Islamic Information Centre, Dr. Sheikh Ramsey. We also do have clips for you as well of an ongoing event in East Finchley in London after there was some desecration of a cinema there that was daring to show Israeli films. There's been a massive, massive counter-protest there. We've got some footage for that to show you. It's coming your way in just a sec.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Apparently alcohol abuse is costing England £27 billion a year. I mean, in fairness, that's the price of 2 rounds in London, Nicholas.
Yeah, tell me about it. Not that I'm a big consumer of alcohol. I'm very Mediterranean in my consumption. But revealed, alcohol abuse costs soar to £27 billion a year. So this cost basically encompasses a variety of aspects, from health-related problems, so the cost on the NHS, lack of productivity, people who lose their jobs, social services, and all that. And, of course, it has been on the rise, 37% more compared to last time this was studied in 2003. So now Institute of Alcohol Studies and some other groups are pushing or asking for tougher taxes and tougher regulation. But is that the solution? Like in ancient Rome, they said, in medium stat virtus, like moderation, virtue is in moderation. And again, if they're going to raise the price, people like myself or yourself who are moderate consumers, pardon?
You're going to turn to heroin. Because it'll become... I mean, well, this is what's happened in Scotland.
It becomes unaffordable, so...
Yeah, in Scotland, they had minimum unit alcohol pricing, and so it pushes up the cost of getting off your tree for your average Scottish ne'er-do-well who likes to sit on a bus stop and drink a bottle of cider. So instead, they're turning to street drugs, which are cheaper by comparison.
That is just terrible. I like that the alcohol industry have come back on this. A guy called Matt Lambert, who's the chief executive of the Portman Group, and they represent the alcohol industry. And he says that the IAS, that's the group who've created this, have failed to take into account the significant direct economic contribution of the alcohol industry to the wider economic and social benefits of moderate and responsible alcohol consumption. Well, it's so true, isn't it? We've got a declining birth rate. We need people to get drunk and chat each other up.
Yeah. GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Patrick Christys tonight on GB News. All of tomorrow's newspaper front pages are coming very, very soon. But first, a major question for this election is how big an impact some of the fringe parties are going to have. I am including, and people might shout at me for this, Richard Tice and the Reform Party. They launched his campaign earlier today by appealing to disillusioned Conservative voters.
July the 4th is the date to look forward to. But goodness me, yesterday, I mean, seriously, we had the Prime Minister drenched in rain, his voice drowned out by the boogie blaster of the Ramona-in-Chief, no less. You couldn't make it up, but it typifies the utter incompetence and uselessness of this Conservative government.
All right, well, that's Richard Tice there, kind of attacking the Tories from the right, isn't he? But a big problem for Labour is whether they can hold on to the Muslim vote. Some of the Labour MPs in seats with large Muslim populations who are being targeted because of their abstentions on a ceasefire include this: Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting, Shadow Justice Sec Shabana Mahmood, Shadow Paymaster General Jonathan Ashworth and Shadow Business Minister Rushanara Ali. But Labour's Shadow Business and Trade Secretary Jonathan Reynolds didn't seem too concerned about the Muslim vote when I asked him last night.
I take nothing for granted when it comes to any community. Now, I think in any part of the UK, from the top of Scotland to Cornwall, Labour's the only competitive party, the only party that can say, if you want to change from the present government, we're your vehicle to do that, but we will take seriously and always take seriously the needs and concerns of every community, because let's be frank, we've had all these opinion polls, not a single vote has been cast and will not be cast for a long period of time, so we will take absolutely nothing for granted, but we will campaign for the basis of the change the UK needs.
Well, can I just bring your attention to something that we are seeing right now, and it ties directly into the pro-Palestine / Muslim vote. This is an incident that was taking place, and I believe is taking place still, in East Finchley, an area with a big Jewish population, and they were showing an Israeli film at the local cinema there. This has happened at other cinemas in the country, and the pro-Palestine lot decided to turn up. They were incredibly well organised. However, they were possibly too organised because it alerted the local Jewish community and supporters of them to it, and they decided to turn up in even bigger numbers. And here's a clip. They've had enough, haven't they? They've had enough. I welcome now the director of the Oxford Islamic Information Centre, Dr. Sheikh Ramsey. Look, thank you very much for coming on. I'm just going to put this tweet to you now, which is a response to Keir Starmer's election campaign launch, which says their Operation Muslim Vote begins. What do you know what that means?
Not really. Operation Muslim Votes begin. I believe
The Muslim vote, of course, there was a legitimate organization which they came and of course brought all the Muslims together and said, okay, let's show ourselves and let's see. We have some demands, something which we want. For example, 10 or 15 points they raised. They said, okay, if anybody wants our votes, because around, I said around 4 million Muslims in this country. He said if they want our vote, they come and help us. I'm sure about that. Which the Sir Keir Starmer, in the time will talk to the Muslim vote, or will talk to the all Muslims and find what they need when they come to the government, what they need, and bring him back. Because I believe in the several years, is in decades, which the Muslim vote in the Labours, but now they turn to, for example, independent, because they did not want to the.
Well, you mentioned independence. And that's a really key point. I think it's going to have a big impact at this election. We rattled off some people there. Now there is a guy who did very, very well at the West Midlands mayoral election, Ahmed Yaqub, who actually had a Twitter poster of himself put up. There it is. So that's his Twitter poster, and there's the flag of Palestine in the back for him. Now, he was actually, I believe he is actually, standing in Birmingham Ladywood. Dr. Sheikh Ramsey, do people have a right to be concerned that people have more of a concern for Palestine than, say, Birmingham Ladywood?
Yes, of course, it's very important. Palestine at the moment is in the heart of the Muslim. Not here, everywhere. And again, it's not only just a Muslim. You can see the world they are trying. It's not Palestine, but it's a humanitarian things which they see. For example, they see there is no food, they see there is no medicine, there is no hospital, there is no schools, there is no universities. These are the people around the world, including Muslim, of course. They look for it and they say, this is not right in the 21st century. Let's sort it out. Let's bring a ceasefire. Let's feed everybody. Let's, for example, take all the hostages back. And then let's bring a peace to the Middle East. This is what they
When you say
really
take all
want.
the hostages back, are you talking about the hostages that Hamas have?
That's right. They should.
Yeah,
They should.
okay.
The Hamas they should take us back, and should be ceasefire. Should be two-state solution. This is a what? And of course, if the Labour, for example, they didn't want to give the Labour the vote because Labour did not go follow the ceasefire. That's what.
That's what it's all come down to. I get that it's really, really inflamed when the Labour Party initially didn't back a ceasefire. You mentioned there things that are not right in the 21st century, OK? Now, I put it to you that we have seen months and months of anti-Semitism and outright hatred on the streets of London. But tonight, the capital's Jewish community seems to be fighting back. These pictures show anti-Israeli graffiti that was sprayed across the entrance of the Phoenix Cinema in East Finchley. It's in North London, OK? It is horrendous, that. But then the local community there decided that they were going to push back, and we saw quite a lot of, Jewish or pro-Israel individuals decide to descend onto that street, and this is some of it. So they outnumbered the pro-Palestine brigade that were there right now. Do you not think it's quite shameful that the local Jewish community, not just there but in other parts of the country, feel the need now to have to fight back against stuff like that?
This is, of course, again, you said what the Muslim in this country trying to bring a ceasefire to that, and again, any anti-Semitism, any Islamophobia, or this is totally wrong. Everybody have to get together, unite to eradicate Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, because the people are people. You know, we are not politicians, of course. Many of them, they want to have some right, and of course, you can see Jewish people.
Is a vote for more independent, overtly pro-Palestine politicians, though, not a vote for more sectarian violence on the streets of Britain?
I don't understand it very well what you're saying, but the important thing is if they have independent, if the independent says yes, I am going to be there, and I'm going to ask for what you people which I'm serving are asking me. That is a right. That is a democratic things which they do, and I'm sure if they do it a little bit wrong, they're going to get sacked or they're going to get disciplined. Therefore, there is, and I would have thought it is very important to cease fire and come and to a solution.
Thank you. Can I say thank you very much? That's Dr. Sheikh Ramsey there for coming on. So great to have you on the show. You're right about one thing, that's for sure, which is that we do live in a democracy and we all have the right to go and vote for someone if we want. And people can moan about things all they want, but if you elect people who are pro-Palestine independent candidates in your local area, or the people do, then that's the way the election works. If you don't like it, then you go out and vote, don't you? But look, coming up, after an avalanche of cock-ups by the Conservatives, Labour have made their first big blunder in this campaign video. Find out exactly why shortly, although I think you might be able to spot it. And they're not happy with a personal attack from Rishi Sunak. But do the Tories need to adopt a no-holds-barred approach to stand any chance? We're going to debate whether or not the Tories need to drag this election into the gutter in order to win. But I've got the first of tomorrow's front pages for you soon.
Hello, very good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Southern areas will stay mostly dry as we go through the end of the week, but it's a wetter story further north because the same area of low pressure that has brought all the rain we've had through the last day or so is lingering across the UK. So we can expect further outbreaks of rain as we go through the end of today, overnight and into Friday. Some of the rain will be a little bit on the heavy side, but it is definitely easing. Further south, it's going to stay largely dry overnight, and there will be some clear skies under which it could turn a bit fresh, a bit chilly perhaps for some of us to start first thing tomorrow morning. But on the whole, once the sunshine gets going, temperatures should rise quite quickly. If we take a look at what's going to happen first thing tomorrow morning, and yes, it's a bit of a cloudy, damp start across many northern parts, particularly across a big chunk of Scotland. Cloud and outbreaks of rain. None of it looks particularly heavy, but could cause some further issues for areas affected by the heavy rain we've seen recently. Perhaps some brightness across western parts of Scotland, but across Northern Ireland, much of England and Wales, a fairly cloudy and a little bit damp start. The best chance of any sunshine first thing tomorrow morning will be across southern parts, and to be honest, here's where we're likely to see the best of the sunshine as we go through tomorrow. As a result of the sunshine, though, we could see a few showers popping up, but it is generally going to be drier towards southern parts, a little bit cloudier and a bit wetter further north. Some outbreaks of rain, perhaps the odd heavy shower here, but not as wet as it has been recently. The temperatures will be near normal for the time of year, feeling warm in any sunshine. In fact, across northern parts, it will feel markedly less fresh than it has done recently. As we go into Saturday, perhaps a bit of a chilly start for some of us, but it does look like the driest, sunniest day of the long weekend. A few showery outbreaks developing, particularly towards eastern parts, but on Sunday, we are expecting some more wet weather to push its way in. Some of that could be pretty heavy at times, and more showers perhaps on Monday too.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Nigel Farage, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
All right, this is Patrick Christys tonight, and I've got the very first look at tomorrow's front pages for you. Let's do it. All right, I go to the Metro. Rishi's bumpy takeoff. General election, day one. The PM concedes no Rwanda flights before the election. Starmer says end the chaos. All right, so let's go to the Independent now. It never rains, but it pours, Rishi, so you'll need one of these. And it is a picture of an MP handing the Prime Minister an umbrella, apparently, during a trip to Derbyshire. The outlook for the Prime Minister is gloomy, as he's forced to admit Rwanda flights won't take off before the election. But there we go. Farage bows out, they also say. Right, we go to the Mirror. So we get all the lefty ones out of the way first, by the looks of things. Election, bad start for Sunak. Brewers, oops. PM's futty blunder during his Wales beer visit. We've played you that clip before. He asked the Welsh whether or not they were looking forward to the football. They have not qualified for the Euros. Let's go to The Guardian. Oh, we're getting all of them out of the way. Sunak begins election campaign by abandoning flagship policies. Right, OK. Bills on smoking ban. Yeah, can I just say the real winners here are smokers, by the way, so far. So there we go. But no-fault evictions, they're also likely to be dropped. Let's go to the Daily Mail. Tories to cut green levies on fuel bills. Energy price cap set to plunge by under £100 before the election. We're going to curb eco-taxes on families, say the Conservatives. So that is at least a message the Tories are trying to get across now, which is it's a vote for the Conservatives, then that is a vote to stop all the mad green stuff and have lower energy bills. So that's essentially that in a nutshell, isn't it? Right, OK, so those are the first wave of your front pages. I am joined by my panel here, which is GB News presenter, superstar Nana Okoye. We've got Conservative peer Lord Sean Bailey and former Labour advisor Matthew Larser. I'm focusing on the Daily Mail's front page here, and why shouldn't I? Sean, you finally got a positive message out there.
I mean, for some people it will be negative, for some people it'll be positive, but anything that helps people pay their bills, I think, is a winner at this point. And actually, imagine horror amongst horrors, Labour actually win. This presents them with a big policy, a big problem, because will they reinstate these taxes? Because in certain corners of the world, everybody loves the green thing and prepared to spend all our money on it. I'm not sure the public thinks.
Nana, you're very outspoken on the on what you may well describe as green nonsense.
Yeah, well, it's absolute rubbish, isn't it? I mean, the Labour Party came up with their 28 billion green plan, and then it's now come down to about 4.7 billion, and they've decided that actually, I mean, the market said that it would destabilise them, so they can't be trusted on, in my view, on green things. I think it's concerning that if they do get in power, they may be focusing on this nonsense.
Matthew, your view on this? I mean, this is something that, so far, the Tories could say, I mean, I get that there's a lot of other stuff, by the way, but the Tories could say, Labour want to make it easy for transgender. That's more men in women's changing rooms. The Labour, they were going to make your energy bills go up. We're going to make them go down. I mean,
there should be a Tory press officer there.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, but there's some tub-thumping stuff here that the Conservatives can confront the electorate with, right?
Yeah, on the gender thing, Labour's it's about whether it's one doctor or two doctors to sign it off. It's not gender self-ID like the Scots wanted to do. We need to be absolutely clear on that. Look, I think, you know, the Tories lack what in politics you call a retail offer, something you can sell on the doorstep that's very easy because they've abandoned so much. You know, doing something on green levies is not a bad idea to try and counter Labour's GB energy plan to give us energy security and actually ensure that we're less dependent on expensive gas from across the world.
Well, quite. Although Ed Miliband's track record of doing things that save taxpayers' money is not a huge success. But
my old boss.
Now, the election campaign has only just got started. Rishi Sunak was keen to land the first blow, apparently, on his biggest rival. He accused Starmer of, quote, thinking he can walk into Downing Street and take the public for granted. So that is apparently the quote. I don't know how personally offensive that is, but it seems that Labour MP Pat McFadden didn't take those words kindly.
The Conservatives were to win, do we even know if Rishi Sunak would remain as Prime Minister or be subject to one of the bouts of leadership challenges that always takes them over? So we're not surprised that they will throw personal attacks at Keir Starmer. But
all right, now I can also reveal that a Conservative source has told us that apparently one of the masterminds behind the Conservative Party, a chap called Isaac Levido, told Tory MPs last night that they're going to run a right-wing campaign to try to stave off reform. Nana, do you think the Tories need to veer to the right in order to win?
Oh, look, it's over for the Tories. Look, the job of reform is to be reform. The job of the Tories is to be the Tories. If the Conservative Party wish to pursue this centrist agenda, which they have been, then they will lose votes, and they are losing out to reform. So, you know, that's the way it goes.
Sean, why not? Why just stop at maybe veering to the right slightly? Why not play dirty a little bit? You know, you're already in the gutter.
There's two things I'd say. When I ran for mayor, one of the mistakes Sadiq Khan made is when he personally attacked me and he started to play dirty. The public don't like that. What the public are interested in is who's going to do for them. Playing dirty just means you look like someone who can't represent people who don't share their political views. That's the first thing. The second thing is the Tories need to be the Tories. I personally think the win is in the middle ground. I disagree slightly with Nana. We haven't been in the middle. We've been veering to the left. We've been left of the middle, not the middle. You know, I do think there's a little bit more of a pragmatic step we could take. Things like tax cuts, etc., are Tory perennials that are much more centred and left. We should stay there. So I think that's where we need to go. But we cannot be reform. We shouldn't be reform. We should listen to reform, but we're not reform.
Do you think it's going to be a dirty election?
Well, I hope not, but I think the portents aren't great. We saw just before the election was called, the Tories with their fake document, Jeremy Hunt standing with a sort of fake dossier about Labour's tax policy, standing with with the word Labour behind him, as though he was sort of pretending to be a Labour spokesperson. I mean, I think you're right, Sean. The more positivity we can have, the better. The problem is the Prime Minister says he's a man with a plan. He's not even a man with an umbrella. He's had a disastrous first 48 hours.
The Labour Party are the worst, though, for chucking insults, so I don't mind. If they want to chuck insults, they should just go for it, because I want to see just how bad they can be and the things they can say, because from what Angela Rayner said, and I literally cannot...
I mean, I could disagree. Yeah. She was wrong to use that language.
If I had said those things, I would have been fired. Well, and also, that is, to me, it's hate speech. If I'd said that to somebody, called someone homophobic, Banana Republic, racist, Etonian, whatever, scum, I would have been... I think that's hate. I think that's hate speech.
But everybody in politics is guilty of personal attacks. But I do think the left are champions at it, really quite bad.
And I think we've got... I mean, you know, one of the most interesting things today, as you highlighted earlier, was all these MPs, all the rats sinking, leaving the Titanic, as more and more MPs realise the game is up for the Tories. And so, therefore, there's a desperate strategy to pitch right, to try and save what you can from the car crash.
All right, now, look, rumours are swirling about why Rishi Sunak went for a snap summer election. Some have even suggested he wants to jet off to California as soon as possible to be a Silicon Valley tech bro, or, as Keir Starmer would say, a Silicon Valley tech brother. But Tory MP Steve Baker said it at PMQ. Do you remember? He stumbled over his words. He couldn't get it. But
we all do that, Patrick.
Tory MP Steve Baker has other ideas. So this is what he said he was going to do if he lost his seat.
Want to do if you're not an MP?
Skydiving, motorcycling, fast catamaran sailing, the wide range of things I'll do. I think you're talking about work, though.
I was talking about work, but that's fine.
The first thing I'm going to do if I don't win my seat is have a long break.
Just in case you missed the start of that clip again, I think this is absolute gold. I think we can hear from it. This is what he's going to do if he loses his seat.
Want to do if you're not an MP?
Skydiving, motorcycling, fast catamaran sailing, the wide range of things I'll do. I think you're talking about work, though.
I was talking about work, but that's fine.
The first thing I'm going to do if I don't win my seat is have a long break.
So I thought he was taking the mickey a bit, right? But so we had a little look, right? And this is Mr. Baker's website, all right? This is his personal website. The Tory MP recommends trips such as which drop zones to use. He's got a link there. You go down, all the political stuff at the bottom, skydiving. Click on it. Seriously, right? And he goes, which drop zones to use, how to master a tandem jump. It's legit. I mean, Sean, what would you do if you left politics?
Listen, this is brilliant. So first thing, say, Steve, I'd love to come with you. I will come skydiving. Secondly, he sounds like a middle-aged man who's seen one too many Tom Cruise films.
Yes.
And he's thought, you know what, leather jacket, Ray-Bans, away I go. Yeah. I'd love to join him. I'll come with him.
Well, you could wear your polo neck like the man with the milk tray man.
I like to call this the manopause. Where they slick their hair back, they go in the little shed.
Or like I said, he's going to lose to my good friend Emma Reynolds.
There you go. I wondered where he was going. There was a moment there where I was like, where's he going with this?
You've got to be fair to him.
9 pints, spearmint rhino, lamboon, sorted.
Let's go.
That's you in your heyday.
That was Wednesday, that. No, not really.
Emily's not
right, coming up, I think she is actually, sorry. Coming up, good news for Tory campaign HQ. Rishi Sunak appears to be cutting through.
What do you think of Rishi Sunak? Who? Rishi Sunak. Who is he?
I will ask my panel for the leader they think can connect most with the public. And no, not John Prescott. He certainly connected with them, didn't he? But there's more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages as well. Don't move.
Good Afternoon Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, Welsh farmer Gareth Wyn-Jones is a first-language Welsh speaker and joins us now. Gareth, I mean, a lot of people will be thinking, hang on, this guy is a Welsh teacher. He speaks English. He knew what was on the parking ticket. He's just trying to make a point. He's being a prat, isn't he?
No, hey, come on, mate. I'm a first language Welsh. It's important that we watch after our language and, you know, that everything's bilingual. For us in Wales, you wouldn't go to France and expect your ticket to be in English, would you? You know, English is the most spoken language, but let's watch after these small languages. It's part of our cultural. So, you know, I take my hat off to the guy. Fair play to him for go out and to fight this. But what it's done is put it onto the mainstream media, and you're talking about it, even that you're calling them that. You know, at least we're having a discussion about it, and it's putting the Welsh language in the forefront. And,
so,
you know,
Gareth,
speaking Welsh is important.
Yeah, so Gareth, this is a matter of principle. Is there a sense that the Welsh language is being eradicated in Wales? Is this something that the Welsh people need to rise up against?
Well, Welsh government are trying to, you know, bring a lot more Welsh speaking into our daily life and teach people how to speak Welsh. Well, everything should be bilingual then. And I think, you know, it should start with government. So government should be putting pressure on these companies to make sure everything is bilingual. So I get behind this guy. Fair play to him. It's a good stance, and it puts it in the public eye. Let's have everything in both languages, especially Welsh, because that's my first language. And I'm
you know what? If I was Welsh, I think I would agree with you. I think I would agree with you, Gareth.
It depends if you come from Wrexham.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. I've got some more front pages for you. Let's do it. It's the Times. Energy bills tumble in first big election battle. Right, OK, so relief for households with price cap to fall. So Rishi Sunak is putting energy bills at the heart of his campaign now. Let's go to the Daily Express. PM's plan to take down Starmer in TV debates. Rishi Sunak has thrown down the gauntlet to, quote-unquote, spineless Sir Keir, challenging him to a debate every single week. Let's go to the Telegraph. Starmer lacks the courage to debate me, says Rishi Sunak. The Prime Minister hopes to expose Labour's empty plans in weekly television face-off. So, OK, there we go. They've also got the opinion piece there from Tim Stanley, who is saying Labour's front bench is the dullest ever. Well, there we go. There's the views there of Telegraph columnist Tim Stanley. Right, now, I am, as you all know by now, obviously joined relentlessly by my wonderful press pack. But can I just introduce you to... it's been an ongoing event, this. So in East Finchley, you might have heard me mention this before, there was scheduled to be another pro-Palestine protest outside a cinema that was showing Israeli films, OK? But the problem now, really, for a lot of the pro-Palestine movement is that the Jewish community have had enough of this, and they decided to turn up at this cinema, and I can now show you footage of what I believe is a rare victory for the, as they would say, the anti-Semitism brigade. Let's have a little look. So what you should have been able to make out there was East Finchley Tube Station, a police cordon, a load of people pro-Israel, and the pro-Palestine brigade being sent packing back on the tube and back out of Finchley. So there we go. I just thought I would bring that to you because, let's be honest, there's been quite a lot of doom and gloom recently about some of these protests, hasn't there? So, anyway, now, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, called a general election yesterday. Or, alternatively, you live in Gillingham.
What do you think of Rishi Sunak? Who? Rishi Sunak.
Who is he? Is he the local? Oh, him, yeah. He hasn't been Prime Minister long enough for me to remember his name, actually. I think that's what it is, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, bless her. I mean, Nana, is he struggling to cut through or not?
Oh, he's so boring. They all are. All of them are so dull. I mean, when you're talking about that they're going to have weekly... He's calling for weekly debates with Keir Starmer. It'll be... You remember the beginning of the pandemic when they would tell you what's going on and everything else? By the end of it, you're like, oh, God. I would use that to send me to sleep. I know it's awful and people were dying and things, but in the end, the constant thing I just switched off.
Sean,
too much of him is too...
What do you make of this? We've got the front on the Express and the Telegraph here. Starmer lacks the courage to debate me. Is that true? You think Sunak would do him at the debate?
I personally think he would do him, but actually I don't think it's a courage thing on Starmer's point. Starmer's thinking has to make the decision, do I want to be out there or do I want to be in here? And I'd argue too many debates, it becomes pointless. Maybe one debate, maybe even two, but actually they should both be on the doorstep, they should both be explaining what they're going to do and sort of give their message while being out in the country. We're very used to seeing them stood in a television studio somewhere in the southeast of England. Do something different. I don't think Starmer's entirely wrong.
Well, it's unusual, isn't it? Because normally the serving or sitting Prime Minister is usually the more reluctant to do the debates. And in this particular case, he is wanting to do them, which implies something, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Labour's absolutely clear that Keir will debate him, but Rishi doesn't want to go out and meet the public because, as we're going to see in an excruciating clip in a moment, every time he meets real people, he makes a fool of himself.
Right.
So Keir wants to spend as much time as possible up and down the country, but he'll take on Rishi in the TV studios as well.
We're sick of the studio thing, you know, because a lot of the questions will be staged. It's all performative. What we want to know is what are they going to do? What are their policies? What are we voting for?
Well, we've just about got time for today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Nana, hit me with your Greatest Britain.
Well, it's got to be Craig McKinley for going back to work and receiving the standing ovation. I mean, this guy has been through the wars, and I watched the programme on GBNews. It was astonishing, and I commend him. He walked in there, despite the fact that he's a quadruple amputee.
Yeah.
So,
fair play.
to him.
Absolutely, 100% fair play. Go on then, Sean. Greatest.
My Greatest Britain is the government for making sure that the leasehold and freehold reform bill has made it through the wash-up process. Forget the political party bit for a minute. This is something that affects 5 million households in this country. We haven't done anything about this feudal, unjust, unfair system for 22 years. Labour have removed it from their first 100 days of office, if they ever got there, which is a real shame. So the fact that the government are pushing it through is wonderful. Again, 5 million households need this to happen.
Although anybody no-fault eviction's gone for
All right,
renters.
now then, you've got your chance.
Look, I think Nana's going to win, but mine is Brian Cox, Professor Brian Cox, not the actor, the singer, and D-Ream for Things Can Only Get Better. Brian Cox has said, of course, it's a theme equally relevant now, and now this song is back at number 4 in the iTunes chart. Number 6 in the iTunes chart.
Yeah.
So let's get it to number 1.
Well. Apparently they're playing Glastonbury. Apparently, I could be wrong about that.
Well, on the back of Rishi.
But yeah.
I hope they vote Tory.
All right, today's winner of the Greatest Britain is, of course, Craig McKinley. So well done.
Well deserved.
Union Jackass time, Nana.
OK, it's got to be the former Post Office boss, Paula Venables. And actually, I was just reading on the front cover of the Guardian, where they've exposed the fact that apparently she killed a review that would have exposed the Horizon IT scandal more than 10 years ago. Right. So that is just...
It's a strong start, to be fair. That. Go on then, Sean.
My Union Jackass honorary is cannabis. Now, hear me out. A landmark study by Dr. Rachel Lee shows that the effect of cannabis on the young, developing mind far outstrips what it is on older people. So all of these people sat at home in their nice, liberal, comfortable world who want to legalise need to understand this will destroy our children. It will destroy poor communities. I love the fact that Bath University have done this study because it says what many like myself have been saying for years.
OK, all right. Matthew.
And mine is the Prime Minister, Mr Sunak himself, for making a total fool of himself in Wales with the football clip.
We have got this clip.
Looking forward to all the football. Not so much my bag. Well, no, but that's because you guys aren't in it.
I don't. Yeah.
Oh, come on. Tumbleweed. It's embarrassing.
yeah.
I mean, after the rain thing, 2 embarrassing moments. This is the sort of thing the public remember. I tell you, when you're with a politician, your number one job is to go is to tell them where they are.
We're in Swansea. Getting it all out of the way now.
Oh, sure.
All right, we're pressed.
Good luck.
We're pressed for time. Today's union jackass is Paula Venel.
Double win for me.
There we go.
The double for the
double for Nana.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yes. All right. Well, look. Thank you very, very much, everybody who's been watching and listening. I can promise you one thing: over the course of the next 6 weeks, we are going to give it a right good go here, 9 to 11 p.m, and tear it apart. It's going to be a series of massive shows for a massive time in British political history. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Headliners next.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Southern areas will stay mostly dry as we go through the end of the week, but it's a wetter story further north because the same area of low pressure that has brought all the rain we've had through the last day or so is lingering across